They're all
It was
recovering
a
still.
very, very emotional play, and really intense, and the audiences were very moved by it. We were all weeping at the end of it, and then I would meet people afterward who didn't know what necessarily they were getting in for, and it was always this kind of, I recognize the feeling right now because we're all just kind of sitting here in a bit of a stunned silence.
Right.
You know,
You have to
after
almost process
experiencing
and
something like that
digest,
together. Yeah.
right?
It's
Tell
hard
me
to
this,
throw
so your agent calls and says, I have this film called Ben is Back, or your agent calls and says, I have a Julia Roberts film. How did it come together for you?
It was an audition. Peter Hedges, the writer and director, had seen me in Dear Evan Hansen, and Bernie Chelsea, the casting director, had asked me to come in, and Peter was amazing because I walked into, it's the best audition I've ever had. I told him I walked into the room, which usually is a very, more of a formal atmosphere, obviously, you're auditioning for a part in a major film. And Peter looked at me and leapt up from the table. He's the sweetest man, and immediately burst into tears and grabbed my hand and held me and couldn't stop hugging me because we'd been through Dear Evan Hansen together. Do you know what I mean? So it's much like this experience.
Right, and when I just met you, I just felt like I needed to give you a hug. Do you get that a lot? You do have this, yeah.
I think so, because we're communicating something and receiving something from you guys too.
So you have a 15-year-old daughter. A lot of us have teens. A lot of us have some struggles and obstacles in our own families. And so I guess the question is, has your daughter seen this film, and have you talked to her about addiction? And if so, what has her response been, and what has she said?
She's 15 years old, so it's hard to know when our kids are going to be challenged by it, I think. I kind of speak from experience. When I was a kid, I wasn't addicted to anything as powerful as heroin, but when I was about 13, 14 years old, I went through a really bad period where I was doing a lot of drugs and just sneaking out and just went nuts.
13, right? Because I'm thinking right
yeah.
now is tough to be a teen, but I guess it always was.
I think it always was.
Right.
I think so.
Right.
But there's something that I am noticing in my own daughter and in a lot of kids nowadays. I feel like they're smarter than I was. They're smarter than we were. They're more savvy about things like this, I think, because they're exposed to it in art and in the media and things that it's not so covert. It's not something that's glamorized in the same way that it was when I was younger, maybe, perhaps. So she seems to have her head on her shoulders in a different way than I could have.
Wow.
Did she see the?
Well, what about,
She
I want to
did
go back
see
to
the
you for a
film,
second, because I
yeah.
think it's powerful that you just.
Can we do this live?
I know,
You're-
sorry.
you're
No,
gonna
no,
stop
no.
ping-ponging.
No, I
with
think
you.
it's
I'm here.
powerful that you just
Yeah.
said that, right? So obviously, there's something in you that feels connected to these kinds of roles. If
Yeah.
you went through something at your own.
And I think it's important to talk about, I think it's important to talk about, especially when we're on the other side of it. Our instincts are to put that away, don't talk about it. And especially as parents, there's always that big decision, do I tell my kid about the shitty thing that I did when I was a kid?
And did you?
Yeah, I did. I don't get into really graphic detail. As she gets older, she wants to know more details about it, and I don't soften it, but it's hard to, I don't want to lie to her, and I don't want to, but it's interesting because I was afraid that telling her about my own, poor judgment when I was her age or things like that would give her somehow leverage over me and my authority and thinking that but I think it's the opposite. It's given her comfort that I know where she's coming from, that I know where kids are coming from, that I can make mistakes in the past and I have learned something through that experience that I can then address with her.
Right, but